Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County Forum for candidates for Sultan City Council. I'm your moderator this evening, Karen Madsen. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. And with us, we have candidates for Sultan City Council for position 1, Connor Morgan and Jean Rudd, and candidate for position 6, Christina Sivright. Candidates not participating in this forum are Stephanie Aldrich for position 2, and Corey Dearborn for position 3. The League thanks all the candidates for running for office, for your willingness to serve the community if you're elected, and for taking the time to participate in this forum so your constituents can get to know you. It's the policy of the League to be nonpartisan. Therefore, we never endorse or oppose candidates or parties. However, we do take positions on issues which we have studied and upon which we've reached consensus. Ground rules for this forum were sent ahead of time to all the candidates, and for our audience, let me take a moment to explain how the question and answer period will work. Opening and closing questions have been shared with the candidates. Other questions have not been shared. However, we have made each candidate aware of the issue areas the forum plans to cover. And by the way, thank you to the community members who sent us recommendations about those issue areas. I will pose the questions. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. 90 seconds will be allowed for answers to the final question, and I'll remind you of that at the beginning of that question. We're using a countdown timer that's visible to all the candidates. It shows elapsed time, and it alerts the candidate when there are 15 seconds left, and again when time is up. Time limits on answers will be strictly enforced. So when you see the timer turn red, when you hear the chime, you're done talking. The order of the questions was predetermined in a random way. I'll change it up each time. As it turns out, Ms. Sivright, you will lead off on the first question, followed by Mr. Morgan and then Ms. Rudd. On the next question, Mr. Morgan, you will lead off, followed by Ms. Rudd and Ms. Sivright, and so forth. So with all of that, let's begin. Mr. Sivright, or Ms. Sivright, I'm sorry, you take the lead on this first question, which is, what qualifications and experience make you a strong candidate for this position? You have 60 seconds. Ms. Sivright, take your mute off. There you go. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I'm currently serving in position number 6, and I have multiple years of experience in both city and state government, which provides me, I believe, with a good understanding of both city policies and procedures. I have experience in leadership, workforce development, vocational instruction, and social and health services in my private life and my work. I believe that this combination of skills helps enhance my ability to be a well-rounded council member for the city of Sultan, and also to look more holistically at the challenges and goals that are in front of the city at this time. In addition, I've been a Sultan Harvest board member, elected and appointed to various volunteer leadership roles, actively participate in community service projects, and have received multiple awards and acknowledgments for those efforts. I'm proud to live in the city of Sultan and serve the community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sivright. Mr. Morgan.
Good evening. My name is Connor Morgan, and I'm a candidate for position 1 on the Sultan City Council. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters, the Sultan School District, Sky Valley Chamber of Commerce, the Sultan Library, and Turk TV for helping us out this evening. I've spent my entire life in Western Washington, and I've always loved building community and serving the public. A few relevant experiences of mine include my time at Western Washington University, where I served as an assistant resident director. While there, I managed the daily operations of a 600-person residence hall. I was responsible for a $5,000 budget, which meant that I had to review all of our purchasing orders to ensure that no public funds were wasted, mismanaged, or misused. I also managed 16 employees in that role. I'm currently employed as an attorney where I practice commercial law and bankruptcy law, and I've done so for over 2 years. I'm responsible for representing people across the socioeconomics of our clientele. I've developed a keen eye for reviewing budgets and bankruptcy forms, so I know I've got the analytical tools needed to keep our city on solid financial ground. I'm well qualified, and I look forward to answering your questions this evening.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Rudd.
Hi, I'd like to echo what Connor was saying about thank you to the community that brought us this forum year after year. You've been doing a great job and we really appreciate it. So I think my strongest qualification is my years of experience in both retail management, manufacturing management. I was director of the Shepherd of the Valley preschool for 14 years. So I've had a lot of leadership roles. As a member of my congregation, as president of the council, and representative to the Synod Assembly, I've been familiar with the budgeting process for small businesses, for multi-million-dollar budgets. So a wide range of experience bringing up my family, lived here since 1990 and been active in the community. Love Sultan, and I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Karen, we can't hear you. You're on the
I'm
mute.
sorry. Mr. Morgan, you'll take the lead. I said to Ms. Rudd, you're very welcome. Thank you. Mr. Morgan, you'll take the lead on this next question. What are the biggest challenges facing Sultan and what are its greatest strengths?
Certainly. It's a great question. I think the biggest challenges there in my book are two: growth and public safety. The city has grown by almost 20% since 2010. And the county actually exceeded its growth target for 2020 by 3%. So we have to manage the growth before it manages us. The homes are already here. There's more people coming. So we have to develop plans and procedures to make sure that our infrastructure stays in line with that continued growth. The second issue is public safety. We're a town of 5,500 people. We're going to reach 6,000 soon. We have one deputy on call during the daytime and one deputy on call during the nighttime. It's my understanding that we can't push for another deputy at the moment, but in my book, I think you have to keep pushing, even if you're being told no. You have to keep raising that issue. The biggest strength is the people. This is a very resilient town. It's a very welcoming town. It's a tight-knit community. I know that we can do anything when we come together as a community, and I look forward to hopefully leading this community in the next 4 years. Thanks.
Ms. Rudd, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're correct that the biggest challenge is the growth that we're experiencing already. We've been experiencing for many, many years. And the Growth Management Act of 1990 was enacted by the legislature. And I think people need to realize that the council is constrained by the Growth Management Act, and we have to come up with revisions to that from time to time. So the housing that's going in, I know a lot of people are upset with the housing that's going in, but we have to take our fair share. So I think the things that I hear from people most when I'm talking to them is that they're concerned about their taxes, they're concerned about education and economic opportunities for their children. I think we're going to have a lot of sea change with the environment in the next 6 years that, if I'm elected, we'll be serving for the next 6 years.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sibright?
Thank you very much, Karen. I'm echoed the issues at hand. Safety, traffic, and growth and revitalization are kind of the overarching picture. Safety is a #1 priority for me. I also have been advocating for additional officers. It looks like that's something we won't be able to look at until our 2023 budget process for a couple of different reasons, but I will be advocating for additional officers. I know right now Chief Martin is currently working on creating a public safety committee to kind of address the gap in between the now and the then. Traffic, Highway 2, if anybody tells you there's an easy fix, they're not being forthright with you. There is no easy fix to Highway 2, so we need to advocate as we can to the state and address the roundabouts and things that we can do as a community. And last, revitalization.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sibright. Ms. Rudd, you'll take the lead on this next question, and that will be, what measures do you support to keep housing options affordable in Sultan?
Well, the council's been talking about that a lot lately too. There's talk about having an overlay on the zoning to allow for a more dense development. There's talk about smaller lot sizes. There's talk about mother-in-law type arrangements. I'm really not excited about that mother-in-law part, because once you've built something, it's there, and mother might not be there, but the house will. So there are some things that I support that the council is doing already. I think there are other avenues that we could go with. What I'd like to see is, when we're paving over these spots, I'd like to see a little bit more concern about what's going to happen with the stormwater runoff and the other impacts that the development has in the environment that we can contain.
Ms. Sebright?
Thank you. When it comes to housing, I think there's some new initiatives being set out by the county council that we should support. That does include, as Jean had mentioned, some mother-in-law homes and some other avenues for people who can't afford homes. Having that additional home on site for another family member would be value added to some individuals, I do believe. Also, I think when we're dealing with these problems, we have to think about them very carefully and thoughtfully, because have almost with fearless conviction, because there's so many different laws, legislation, rules and regulations, that trying to navigate the system to actually come up with something that will benefit people without the additional cost is a hard road to navigate. So I do believe we have to have some authentic devotion to that topic to move forward in a positive manner.
And Mr. Morgan?
Thank you. Yeah, it's an excellent question. Housing affordability is a major challenge, especially as people are starting to, move through that housing ladder from apartment to purchasing their first home to getting into their second home. I think there's two main ways the city can work forward in a productive manner to try to address these issues. The first, as Ms. Sebright mentioned, is working with the county and other stakeholders in all levels of government to try to provide a regional plan. This is not an issue that's unique to Sultan. If you look at housing prices in Monroe, if you look at housing prices elsewhere in Snohomish County, they have skyrocketed in recent years. So I think working with our partners at all levels of government should be number one. And then number two, I think we should take an all the above approach. I think accessory dwelling units, ADUs, could be an idea that we should at least try and see if it works. And then building off of that, if we can provide resources to people, whether that's just information on how to navigate the home buying process, I think the city should look into that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Sebright. Please take the lead on this one. More than once, I've heard you mention traffic issues on US 2. How should the city address those issues? Please unmute, Ms. Sebright.
Thank you. There are some things that we are looking at this time. We're looking at roundabouts. We're partnering with the region and the state, because I think another thing is to make our money go farther, to make these projects happen, we have to partner with region and state at a state level so we get the biggest bang for our buck. I don't think there's going to be a immediate fix, but I do believe that focusing on our intersections and roundabouts to get the stop signs out, to get traffic moving, is something that we can do on a shorter term and make a substantial difference. When it comes to the bigger issues at hand, that's at a state funding level, even a federal level, to be perfectly honest. So we have to continue to advocate to our legislators for that funding, and realize that outer areas also use our road to get to Eastern Washington, and that the value and importance of that.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, US 2.
That's the million-dollar question that when I've been out doorbelling, people have always asked me. When I ask people, what's one thing you'd like to see the city work on the next 5 to 10 years, traffic is the number one priority. And I think there's 3 steps to what the city can do. Step one, I think, is to take an inventory as to what the available options are, how much are they going to cost, and who is responsible for that. As Ms. Sivright mentioned, there's some things that the city can control directly. There's some things the city frankly cannot from a legal standpoint. Step 2 is then, after we do that inventory, figure out what the city's plan is going to be and how we're going to communicate with our community partners at the state, county, and federal level to make sure that we're all on the same page, rowing in the same direction towards a solution that'll be beneficial for everyone here in the Sky Valley. And the final piece is communication. When I talk to people about traffic, they're aware that it's not going to be a 1-year fix or even maybe a 5-year fix. But what they do want is communication from the city saying, here are action items, here's what we need to do next, here's where we're going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years.
And finally, Ms. Rudd, your thoughts on US2?
Yes, I think the other two candidates have made it very clear that US2 is not just a Sultan problem. The state needs to be involved. The county needs to be involved. I do support an east-west corridor that would relieve some of the anxiety that people have about getting around town. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we've got any kind of consensus on how to do that. I think one of the things that the state could do for us would be to relieve some of the traffic on this Route 2 and allow for a better pass through in some of the more southern areas of Snohomish County. There are a lot of things that we can do with roundabouts, as Christina was saying, but I think we need to bear in mind that a roundabout is not going to help the people trying to get in and out of their driveways that are not particularly adjacent to the roundabout, and stop signs do give you a little bit of a gap sometimes. They'll back the traffic up and give you a gap.
Mr. Morgan, next question. You lead off, please. What's your strategy for working productively with council colleagues and members of the public whose ideas or life experiences may be different from yours?
Absolutely, yeah. You definitely don't want 7 council members and the mayor who all think one thing and that's all we ever do and we don't disagree. Groupthink is a horrible thing, and in government, it's one of the worst things that can lead to failure. When it comes to talking with people whose views are different than mine or experiences are different than mine, I was taught at a young age you were given 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for one reason, and that's because it's better to listen first and ask questions and understand people and their experiences and where they're coming from, because there's probably a lot more that I don't see when I am disagreeing with someone. So step 1 for me is definitely to listen first. Step 2, ask clarifying questions to make sure I fully understand where that person's coming from. And step 3 is be flexible. Don't be entrenched in a position. It's quite possible that someone's idea that's contrary to mine is the right idea, and I just need to listen to it and gain that perspective. And so I think just treating them as a normal person and listening first before speaking is my way of working with people.
Ms. Rudd, your thoughts?
Well, here's where my experience in business and working as a team member in production helps a lot. I've been a trainer for a lot of different kinds of people on a lot of different kinds of projects, and listening is very, very essential. But in the process of listening, we also need to reflect what we've heard and let the person know that the message that we've received is what we've received, and verify that it was the message that they were trying to send. So listening to the feelings and emotions behind the statements is also another component of active listening. There are many different techniques that we've been trained over the years with dealing with teamwork and in production. So I could bring all that with me and look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sivright?
Thank you again, Karen. I think you have to look at your council, your mayor, your citizens like a prized photo album. Review it often and recall the priceless lessons you've learned from past and present experiences. It's impossible to lead anyone to anything without facing opposition. I think it's essential in those moments that you face criticism to do it with respect and listen with an open mind. If someone plays the role of a chronic critic, though, I will say if somebody showers me with pessimism, if necessary, I will defend my position and take action when necessary. Criticism is an occupational hazard of leadership, and I do my best to handle it gracefully.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rudd, take the lead on this one, please. What should be your city or what should be Sultan's plan to deal with existing or potential racial inequities?
Okay, so I just muted myself and unmuted myself. I think I'm good to go now.
Okay.
Yes, Sultan is still predominantly a Caucasian town, but that's changing, and I think it's all for the good. Representative Councilman Nagel just excuse me, just brought forward the Juneteenth celebration. I think that's a step in the right direction. We've had some recent controversy just this week about Columbus Day celebration versus Indigenous people. I think we need to think things through because times are changing. People are coming into the community and we need to embrace that. I think we can all improve when it comes to that sort of thing. It's a personal responsibility.
Thank you, Ms. Sebright.
Thank you. I've got a couple different thoughts on this, but I'm going to say I think that change starts at the top. It's everybody's responsibility, but I also believe it starts at the top. And we do need to increase our awareness because we are a predominantly white community still. I have had the opportunity in the last few weeks to meet a couple of new families that are moving into town that are amazing. And I think we can learn a lot by opening our eyes to the inequities in race and race. I also think when you have something like Columbus Day that came up recently, that there's room for Columbus Day and Indigenous Day. I don't think you have to choose, that we still need to be open to multiple views on things. Also, as a city, I think we can hire and advance more diverse workforce if they meet the skills and qualifications of a job. Get involved in what's called the Fair Change Hiring Initiative.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you. I think, like Ms. Sebright said, it starts at the top, and I think the city needs to send a message that everyone is welcome and that we want to provide opportunities for all, and that we want to meet people where they're at and let them know that we're not have a no tolerance policy when it comes to racism and sexism. I think another thing that the city can look into doing, if they haven't already, is something called universal design, which is a concept in design planning where if a new building is built, for example, it's fully compliant with it's fully compliant with ADA, but also even if it wasn't fully compliant with ADA, it would allow people to access it regardless of ability. And I think finally, again, going out into the community and meeting new people, you never know what you don't know. And as a white person, I don't know what it's like to be a woman or a Black person or anything like that, but I can always be asking questions of what I can be doing better. And I think being humble and asking questions and what you can be doing better than what you should be doing.
Ms. Sebright, you go first on this next question, and it is, what are the most pressing environmental issues your town faces, and what would you propose to address them?
And unmute. Okay. So environmentally, I think cities need nature, but nature also needs our city. We need the people in our city to be aware of and care about the environment and what's going on around us. I don't think there's any simple way that we can protect and maintain the beauty, the nature, the rural landscapes, if we also are supporting the spread of highways and sprawl in our countryside. So there's kind of a fine line there that we have to look at to manage and maintain both the growth and our areas. Healthy, robust cities where people want to live are critical in the protection of our nature. I think what we're doing right is preserving our parks. I think what we're doing right is maintaining our own water system. And I think what we're doing right at this time is by upgrading our water waste management.
Mr. Morgan, your thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you that growing up, we didn't have wildfire smoke on the western side of the mountains in July and August. And the last few years, that has become the norm. as we try to navigate that. So what are we going to do about the environment on the city level? Well, one thing I think the city should definitely be supporting is more charging stations wherever we can get them. Ford just announced recently that its F-150 Lightning fully electric truck, they've got so many orders that they're opening up a new factory. Electric vehicles are going to be the way of the future, and that future is coming quickly. Second thing that we can be doing is upgrading infrastructure. If we can get more efficient buildings, we can get them LEED certified. You can get grants for solar panels, you can get grants for wastewater to use that can be upgraded. And so I think as long as we're upgrading infrastructure and trying to look forward to the future, I think that's how we manage our environmental problems at the city level.
And Ms. Rudd, your thoughts?
Yes, I agree that more charging stations. I was really happy when the charging station next door to the visitor center went into place, not just to bring people into the town, but to show our commitment to that sort of thing. I think the city can lead in that direction as we replace equipment that belongs to the city. If we could go in the direction of electronic vehicles and that sort of thing, any kind of new construction that the city is doing needs to have a strong environmental component. So that being said, this is another reason for the east-west corridor. I think we're going to be facing a lot of challenges in the near future with extremes in weather. We've already seen extreme heat. We've already seen extreme cold just in recent couple of years. I think it's going to cycle more and more, and we need to be prepared for that. If that means the storm drain system, the stormwater system, upgrading the water.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Morgan, this question is for you first. What is one aspect of public safety which you think could be improved in Sultan to increase effectiveness and equity?
So in the past few months, I had the opportunity to do a ride-along with Deputy Mark Bond. He recently retired, but during that ride-along, I was able to see what it's like from the inside of the police truck. And it's easy to be outside the police truck and say we need to do X, Y, Z, but it's a completely different thing when you're in that truck and everyone's staring at you as you're driving through the town on a 12-hour shift. I think, as was mentioned before, anything that we can do as far as neighborhood watch and empower the citizens of this town to kind of take public safety into our own hands with regards to checking in on neighbors, making sure that everything is in order. And then I think from an accountability standpoint, I think the city can work with the sheriff's office and with Chief Martin to ensure that officers are meeting standards. One of the benefits of having a contract with the county is that we can select the officers and we can dismiss them much easier than we could if we had our own police department. So that's one reason to keep that contract with the county. And I think that's what we can do.
Ms. Rudd, your thoughts on that question?
Yes, the arrangement that we have with the sheriff's department is much better than what we've had in the past when we funded our own police force. It gives us a lot more flexibility, but we're going to be running into some budget problems with that, taking on liability insurance for the deputies. So I think that overall, we need to try to fix the problem. And that means the services that we offer, the officers are going out and offering services to our homeless community. If we can expand that, I think it will pay off in the long run. I think we have good people in town. We've done neighborhood watch. I think we need to revive that program and expand it. That's about it.
Thank you. Ms. Sebright?
This is hard to break down to one aspect for me because I think safety is such a big issue overall. I think community involvement is a key piece that we're missing at times. Again, Ms. Rudd mentioned it, the block watch, to revitalize our block watch, to support public safety committee that the chief is currently trying to put in place, I think is very important. Also supporting our social services. If there was one aspect, I would have an embedded social worker on our police team. We would have an embedded social worker. So when that person that needed those services was ready and said, yes, I need this, we'd have that person to take them to those services and have them provided immediately when they're ready to accept the offer. I think it's key.
Thank you, Ms. Rudd. What initiatives would you support to address food insecurity, drug and alcohol abuse, and mental health issues among your residents?
Well, I think there are some new federal programs that are coming on board, and they will offer housing and wraparound services for people. I think there's funding available through ARPA and through other sources related to this new program. There's more information about that on my website, electjeanrudd.org. As far as the food bank in town, I think they do a great job, but they're very shorthanded. One of the reasons why I'm involved in this race, and one of my priorities, will be to get more people involved with their government, involved with their local officials. And we have so many races right now that are running unopposed. I'd like to see people feel more trusting of their community and be able to support things like the food bank.
Thank you, Ms. Sivrite.
Yeah, food insecurities, boy, that's a tough one for people who have that problem. I have people in my own family that have come from places where they hide food in their cupboards and locking them in drawers because they just want to always know they have that next meal. And it's not a feeling anyone really wants to have. I think our best bet is with the VOA locally. There is initiative. There are some initiatives coming through that the VOA is part of to help with food insecurities. We could expand on that. I do also believe, though, that the city is not a social service. So what we need to do is find those initiatives that work best or support our community and support those initiatives and the people that are running them, because I think there's a fine line with the city getting involved in being social services, but we need to support those needs within our community.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that both Ms. Rudd and Ms. Sivrite have touched on the food insecurity piece, and I'm fully in agreement with what they both have said on that. What I'd like to discuss is more the mental health component of this question, which is what initiatives would you support with regards to mental health issues? I think that all of us have been impacted by the last 2 years, but for the once-in-a-century pandemic, I'd be sitting on a stage with Ms. Rudd and Ms. Sivrite in a high school gym with all of you, but instead I'm behind a camera. And so I think that has really had an impact on a lot of people. I can tell you that it's had an impact on me. It's affected my personality and how I try to interact. I love meeting with people and connecting with them, and we can't do that. So I'd like to see the city expand its resources with regards to its website. If the city can be kind of a clearinghouse for information and can connect people with the next step. The city is not a one-stop shop to solve every problem under the sun, but what we can do is at least take people in and point them in the right direction, like the VOA, the food bank, and other resources throughout the county.
Ms. Sivrite, if you take the lead, please, on this next question. What are the issues, if any, in Sultan which have arisen as a result of the pandemic? And how would you address those issues if you believe they exist?
Thank you very much. Well, we closed City Hall to the public. That was the first thing that happened with the pandemic. And then we moved to over phone and online communications like this meeting we're having today. Some of those things I think have been value added because they've allowed people who maybe wouldn't have participated to begin participating through this avenue. So that's a good thing. Well, I do recognize the importance of in-person interactions, though, with the city, and I'm glad to say we're getting to a point where we are getting more towards that. One of my biggest concerns about the pandemic or the effect is our inability to embrace our new community members. Like was mentioned by Mr. Morgan, people feel as if they are isolated, but you move into a new community and you don't have the ability to meet people and embrace it and feel like you're part of it. So I look forward to that returning on some level in the near future.
Mr. Morgan?
I I think there's been two main issues from the pandemic, one of which the city has already addressed, and one that if elected, I would love to take the lead on to help them with. The first thing that the city did that I greatly applaud was the online bill pay with utilities. Like Ms. Sibright mentioned, the pandemic hit and we had to close City Hall. So that meant that if you wanted to make a payment or if you had to set up a new account, you just moved to town, you need to get the lay of the land. It had to be by phone, council meetings on Zoom and that kind of thing. So the city was very well equipped and was very flexible to move to that online bill pay, online form for city council, et cetera. One issue that I'd like to see addressed is more community outreach when it comes to big picture planning. So with regards to new parks or a new connector road through town, that community outreach piece is a huge component because you need that buy-in from your local residents. And I would love to take the lead on that, knocking on doors, hosting forums, getting feedback from the community is valuable because that's the best way to find out what's in the public interest.
Ms. Rudd, your thoughts?
Well, I think there has been a couple of other issues. I think Ms. Sibright and Mr. Morgan have both touched on a lot of the issues, but one thing that hasn't been mentioned is the need for broadband, the need for reliable internet connections. I think the city could do something in that direction. Another thing that people are still struggling with is childcare. A lot of people had to end up staying home because of being restricted from going to work in the early part of the pandemic. And not having schools in session, that was a big chunk of childcare in a sense. But I know that the church that I go to, we were asked if we could host more childcare and we were not able to do so. So I think encouraging the community in that direction of being able to have resources, the city providing the information how to get
Thank you
the
very
resources.
much. Appreciate that. We're down to our last question. When the timer comes up, you'll see it reflect the fact that you have a minute and a half, an embarrassment of riches of time to answer this question. Mr. Morgan, if you would lead off, please. And this last question is, what additional issues or information would you like to bring to the attention of the community?
Certainly. Well, I think one final piece that I'd like to bring to the attention that we haven't had the chance to discuss tonight is, and they kind of go hand in hand, is public works and our parks. I think one of the top priorities for any city is to have a fully functional public works department, and they do a fantastic job making sure that the city is always looking at its best. I would continue to support them, work hand in hand when it comes to procuring equipment, when it comes to hiring staff to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the city, that your sidewalks are in good shape, that your potholes are fixed, that right-of-ways are mowed, and that we can present our best foot forward to people who are living in our city and people who are coming here and passing through. The second thing I'd like to raise is parks. I don't know about you guys, but this summer when we had that heat wave, my only option for staying cool was to repeatedly jump in my shower over and over again. What I'd like to see the city look at is if we can do some sort of splash pad or some sort of way to help people cool off. Our summers are only going to get hotter. And right now there aren't really a whole lot of options for people, especially people with families. So if there's any way we can do that as we look to upgrade and expand our park infrastructure, I'd love to see the city do that. And then in talking with people, when I'm going door to door, I know there's plans to develop a park on the Sultan Basin area. I'd love to be a part of that with community outreach to get stakeholders from everyone involved so that everyone feels empowered and a part of the decision making. Thank you for your time tonight. Thanks again to the league. I appreciate it.
Ms. Rudd, your final thoughts for the evening?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground. I think the things that I mentioned before about getting people involved and trusting their government, trusting that their vote is important, trusting that we hear them, that these things are basic, fundamental part of our community. And I think it's been a divide in our community that there are people who absolutely want nothing to do with public service or government. And I think the city needs to reach out to these people. I think we need to come together as a community. Neighborhood Watch can help with that. There are public forums that the city has events downtown. but yeah. Okay. I'd just like to recommend that people go to the website, electjeanrudd.org, send me a message, tell me what your thoughts are, ask questions, and let's get conversation going. That's really all I need to bring forward tonight. I thank you for having us, and the questions were great. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you. Ms. Sifright, final thoughts?
All right, it looks like I get to wrap things up. So thank you again. I'd like to just echo, thank you everyone who put this together for us this evening. Thank you to Mr. Morgan and Ms. Rudd for showing an interest in serving our community. Again, we've got multiple unopposed positions at this time. And I am one of those who's running unopposed, but I still want to earn every vote I receive. So I also encourage citizens, they're welcome to reach out to me. I am happy to address any questions or concerns. I encourage people to get involved in their community. I ran 4 years ago on Pride, Leadership, and Service, and I'm just looking to run for another 4 with that same logo in mind. I have pride in my community. I'm happy to be a lead, work in a leadership position for this community, and I'm here to serve. I also think it's important, or I'd like to mention, that this is a nonpartisan position, and I treat it as such. I have my own opinions on things, but I'm here to listen to this community holistically and as a whole. And I really encourage people to attend city council meetings, ask questions. We're here to serve you and proud to be part of this community. So thank you everyone for your time this evening. And again, for the other council members who are running, thank you so much.
The League appreciates these candidates for joining us and for running for office. A recording of this forum and others will be available on the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County website and our YouTube channel. You can find links to both of those at our website at LWVSnoho. That's LWVSNOHO.org. We encourage you to explore additional information about these and all other candidates. The Snohomish County Voters Pamphlet will be mailed to residences starting October 13th. Vote411.org, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, is another good source for nonpartisan voting information. Finally, general election ballots will be mailed on the 14th of October, and Election Day is November 2nd. Please vote. This concludes our candidate forum. Thank you all for joining us.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to this forum featuring candidates for Fire District 5 Commissioner, Position 2. It's sponsored by a partnership among the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County, Snow Isle Libraries, the Sky Valley Chamber of Commerce, and the Sultan School District. I'm your moderator, Karen Madsen, a member of the League of Women Voters. And with us tonight are candidates for Commissioner, Position 2 for Fire District 5. Those candidates are Deborah Chase and Misty Halverson. The League thanks both of you for running for office, for your willingness to serve the community if you're elected, and for taking the time to participate in this forum. It's the policy of the League to be nonpartisan. Therefore, we do not endorse or oppose candidates or parties. We do take positions on issues which we've studied and upon which we've come to consensus. Ground rules for this forum were sent ahead of time to all the candidates, but for the sake of the audience, let me take a moment to explain the question and answer period rules. Opening and closing questions have been shared with the candidates. Other questions have not been shared. However, we have made each candidate aware of the issue areas this forum plans to cover, and we appreciate the community members who sent us recommendations about those issue areas. I'll pose the questions. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. 90 seconds will be allowed for answers to the final question, and I'll make sure to remind you of that change when the time comes. We're using a countdown timer, which is visible to all the candidates. It shows elapsed time, and it alerts candidates when there are 15 seconds left, and then when time is up. Time limits on answers will be strictly enforced. When you see the timer turn red and hear the chime, you must be finished answering. The order of the questions will alternate. First one person, then the other will begin. I'll change the starting order each time. I did a random selection and it came up that Ms. Chase will go first on the first question, followed by Ms. Halverson. And with just two candidates, you'll then move into the answer to the next question. So it'll be Ms. Chase, Ms. Halverson, Ms. Halverson, Ms. Chase, like that, back and forth. So with that, we're ready to go on this first question, which you have 60 seconds. Ms. Chase, you'll take the lead. What qualifications and experience make you a strong candidate for this position?
Well, first, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and everyone who's helped with this. It's a great opportunity to participate, and I appreciate it very much. So what makes me a strong candidate for the position is, first and foremost, I have prior elected experience. I served on the Kenmore Council and was mayor my last 2 years, helped incorporate the city, and spent 6 years there working with other government agencies. Also made sure that the citizens' input was always gathered ahead of time and brought forward into any decisions that we made. Secondly, my professional experience, I have an MBA in accounting and finance. I was a project manager for over 30 years where I managed between $6 million and $60 million budgets. I believe that expertise would be really helpful on our board as we make financial decisions, especially with all of the growth that's happening. And growth is something that was very important to attend to in Kenmore. We were going through exponential growth during my time there, and I'd like to bring that experience to our community as well.
Thank you, Ms. Chase. Ms. Halverson.
The opportunity to serve as commissioner is something I'm excited about and well suited for. I see the job as translating citizens' priorities into how we provide and fund emergency services by asking good questions and turning answers into action. My background includes all those skills. From my legal experience, I know the importance of listening and acting in the best interest of others. My education and critical thinking skills allow me to find solutions to complex problems. As a former state tax attorney, I appreciate issues about taxation and public budgets. As a dental health professional and small business owner, I understand service and going the extra mile for people. I was blessed to grow up in a firefighter's household, and I have a deep love for the fire service. I know the commitment and hard work it takes to provide help to neighbors. I'm a communicator and a collaborator, and I'm honored to be endorsed by two candidates from our recent primary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Halverson. Next question. What do you believe to be the primary job of a fire commissioner?
I believe the primary job of the fire commissioner is to act as an advocate for the community. We are here to oversee. We're not here to do the fire chief's job, but it is important that we are active in the community and ask them what it is that is important to them and turn that and translate that into action in terms of how we move our fire district forward.
Thank you. Ms. Chase?
Thank you. Yes, the commissioner role is a legislative role, very similar, in fact, identical to that of a city council member in a city setting. It's giving direction, setting policies, but they also approve all expenditures, all of the vouchers, and must approve all the budgets. So they are key and integral in setting the priorities for the district, especially as you move forward in time. I have a lot of experience with the government that's needed to do that. I also have a lot of experience in getting input from the community, which I also believe is a very important role for a commissioner, making sure that you reach not just the people who have already been listening and asking questions, but that you find ways to outreach to everyone, to give them the opportunity to get their concerns heard and make sure that you're providing the very best service you possibly can for the community.
Thank you. Ms. Halverson, I have to ask, did I cut you off prematurely on that last question? Did you have more you wanted to say? No? Okay. All right. I felt as if I might have. I just wanted to be sure about that. All right, Ms. Chase, could you take the lead on this question, please? What are the biggest challenges facing this fire district, and what are its greatest strengths?
Good question. Compound. The current challenges are we have a funding levy that's going away at the end of this next year. So making sure that we get out and help citizens understand why we'll be asking for a levy lid lift to replace that revenue. And additionally, we have a new chief coming on board at the beginning of the year because our current chief is retiring. And so making sure that that new chief has all the information that they need, gets introduced to the community properly, and making sure it's a fit as we go forward with a new new chief. And then the second part, what are the greatest strengths? As I've been around doorbelling, I have gotten nothing but compliments about our staff and the service that they provide. And so we want to make sure that whatever we do going forward, we retain that culture here in our community. The number of people who've had EMT calls, et cetera, who have complimented the people who come to their door is such a strength that we want to make sure we continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Halverson, your thoughts?
The fire district is in the business of planning ahead and being ready for whatever may happen. They don't control traffic and growth, but they must prepare and respond by investing in personnel, equipment, and procedures. Our community is growing, but we aren't large. District 5 responds to approximately 1,200 calls per year or 3 per day on average. We must continue to have crews who are prompt and fully trained. The public understands it is the chief's job to ensure this readiness, and the commissioners oversee his or her efforts. Our fire chief will retire at the end of 2021, and hiring the right leader is important and is underway. Another important issue is taxes and choices in how we fund District 5's needs when the current M&O levy expires. Last, we will consult voters in 2022 and recommend a solution for 2023. Lastly, it's time to move forward with an in-house medic program. The feasibility and affordability.
Thank you, Ms. Halverson. I appreciate that. Next question, you take the lead on, please. Are there issues in the fire district which arose from the pandemic? If so, how would you address them?
Yes, the issues in the pandemic are worldwide. Obviously, things have changed all over the world as a product of this pandemic and the millions of people who have died, and how it is that we have to move forward that is not likely to end in the near future in terms of how we handle the pandemic. And this district has done a fantastic job of, through their preparation, their PPE, and all their matters, they have handled it absolutely correctly. And It is not going to end anytime soon. We simply have to maintain our diligence, our proven diligence, to keep our community safe and to keep our firefighters safe.
Thank you. Ms. Chase, your thoughts on issues arising from the pandemic?
Uh,
Ms. Chase, you're muted.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted me. We're there now. The response of the fire district was excellent. We did do a great job of immediately having PPE on hand that was needed for the pandemic, staying up to speed. The chief regularly reported in the meetings about where we were, what was happening, etc. He did a great job of making sure that they were ahead of the curve, so to speak, in hiring replacement PPE, and he did a good job of forecasting how long it would last. The challenges that are going to happen, that we're starting to see nationally and not just locally, are keeping staff on board. We have more and more staff attrition happening in districts around us, and people are getting burned out from the measures that they've had to take for the pandemic. So addressing them means making sure that we're continuing to hire good employees, we're investing the time and the training in them to keep them, and that we continue to make our culture one where our personnel want to stay.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chase, what part should the fire district play in the environmental health of your area?
Excellent question. So for environmental health, any kind of fire is going to create some sort of environmental hazard. And already our staff does a great job of maintaining that, containing it as best as they can. And they follow protocols that are fire industry standard in washing out their gear, et cetera, when it's done. So the way that we best manage it is through operations and maintenance practices. But we also have a responsibility, and we've done some of this already, to help our individuals understand wildfire issues and fire prevention overall. Having that educational materials for our citizens easily and readily available on our website is something that has started to happen, and it's good to see. And then finally, we should be adopting any new protocols that are environmentally oriented as quickly as possible. And it's important to note that our new station is LEED certified, which is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and was built to be environmentally friendly.
Thank you, Ms. Halverson.
Living in the Sky Valley, we all appreciate magnificent environment every day. Each of us feels a part of keeping it healthy. I believe that minimizing environmental damage starts with rapid response before things escalate. Our new Public Safety Center on Highway 2 and the staff are the crown jewels in protecting the environment. The building consolidates personnel and equipment from several sites to a single place. It provides an ideal location to respond from. It allows quick response to wildland fires and nearby river access for water emergencies. We can feel proud of its eco-friendly heating, lighting, and water system. It was also built with the foresight and more than $1 million from the state to serve as an emergency operations center to host fire districts and other agencies working together in a large disaster.
Thank you. Ms. Halverson, as a commissioner, how do you plan to assure the public that your staff has the proper level of training for their jobs?
It's important that the public appreciate District 5's readiness and history of outstanding performance in fighting fires and offering emergency medical response. Washington State established standards for firefighting and EMS. All firefighters receive standard training, and District 5 crews meet the requirements. Medical personnel are overseen by a Snohomish County physician who ensures those standards are met. While commissioners don't perform these services or manage them directly, they do oversee and ensure they are performed well at the least cost for the taxpayers. District 5's blended staffing model of full-time and part-time responders is the ultimate expression of inclusion in hiring and training, and is cost-effective for the community. The full-time team has the job of training recruits and part-time staff. They take this role seriously and are accountable.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chase, your thoughts on staff training?
Yes, thank you. the role of the commissioner is oversight here. And so in order to assure that the newest training is always incorporated and that every single member of the staff is receiving the training that is required, means we need to have a good solid training plan in place. And then I believe it's the role of the commissioners to review that annually and make sure that all of the required certification is being met and is listed, as well as any ongoing skills and additional skills that we would like our staff to have. And that means it can be broader than what might be the minimum required standards. Then there should be a quarterly report to the board on how we are meeting the training plan. What are our goals and have we met them? How many employees have been trained? Have we missed any? And then an annual report to the citizens, I believe, is important so that all of us can see what a great job we're doing and have the confidence that all of our staff are trained as they should be. Thank you.
Ms. Chase, take the lead on this one. Tell us about your ideas for working productively with staff, commission colleagues, and members of the public whose ideas may be different from yours.
That's an excellent question. It's sometimes difficult to take your own personal hat off and listen to others, but I've done that in the past in Kenmore, and let me give you an example. We had a road closure that had to happen for a bridge replacement. Either it was to be partial or to be a complete closure. Shorter time frame, less money to do the full closure and get it replaced, or a longer time frame, more expensive to do it the other way. Personally, I would have loved to have gone longer. It definitely impacted me individually, but I made sure that we reached out to our citizens, put up a reader board to those who cross that bridge regularly of a meeting to learn about it and give input. And when our citizens in that part of the community came to the meeting, learned all of the details, were given all the options, they almost to a person wanted the shorter time frame, less expensive, complete closure, and agreed that they could put up with it. So that's what I voted for. That's what I do here.
Ms. Halverson.
They say nothing great is ever accomplished alone. I truly believe this. We have to work together and build what we want, doing so through respect and understanding. I'm a communicator and a collaborator. These are important skills in all areas of my life to help those I care about and to explore areas of shared interest. These skills are also what enable me to receive endorsements from our community leaders, including former opponents, following the primaries. I have the heart of an advocate, which means I listen and I'm able to transform listening and learning into action. I follow up, offer to help, and hold people accountable. I persevere. I hope to have the opportunity to serve as fire commissioner where I can use all of these abilities to benefit District 5.
Thank you. Ms. Halverson, what advantage or disadvantage might there be in transitioning to a regional fire authority?
I think that the advantages or disadvantage of that would be that we would lose a sense of community. The district has grown and expanded and been absolutely great in quality, and that has continued to enhance. And I think that there is a great power in keeping things local and having community investment. And I think that the disadvantage will be that that sense of community and true caring at a gut level, at a community level, would be lost.
Thank you. Ms. Chase?
I agree with Misty that there are definitely disadvantages around any sense of loss of community, and a lot of people really do enjoy having our local, but there are advantages to it as well. Some that I see is you'd have more bench depth for any of the skill sets that are needed. But you then take the step back and say, does that outweigh knowing that most of your firefighters live in your community and that you see their faces regularly instead of somebody different every time? So I could go on and on with both advantages and disadvantages, but the reality is if we were to consider doing that as a community, it's a community decision. It's not a board decision. And what I would do if indeed that proposal came to us is make sure that the community was involved in conversations about whether that was something they were even interested in before I'd ever consider putting it on the ballot for the community to choose.
Ms. Chase, lead off on the answer to the final question, please. What additional issues or information would you like to bring to the attention of the community? When the timer comes up, you'll see that it provides you with 1.5 minutes for a response.
Oh, good. Thank you. So there are a couple. We've touched on them briefly, but one of them is the need for a levy lid lift. Both of us talked about the fact that we have a maintenance and operations levy that's expiring at the end of the coming year. And that's going to lose us $450,000 in revenue. And that's an important piece of revenue to keep our services at the level that we currently have and that our citizens truly should expect. And so we're going to have to bring the information to them requesting a levy lid lift. Levy lid lifts mean that you're reauthorizing going back up toward or to the maximum that's allowed statutorily for the amount that can be collected on your property taxes. And over time that deteriorates, the amount decreases as more people come on board and as the 1% for total collections is implemented. So that's something that I feel very strongly we need to educate our citizens about the impacts of long before we ever ask them to vote on a levy lid lift. The other one is the growth impacts and what is truly going to change, or does it change as we have a higher and higher density of population. The only way to get at that is to start having metrics that are a little more representative of what's happening. Break down our calls information that comes to the board monthly into geographic calls, as well as break up our EMS ones into more detail so we can see it coming.
Thank you so much. Ms. Halverson, you have the last word tonight. Same question, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. 2 topics come to mind right away. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to District 5's amazing responders during COVID. Through their careful preparation, use of PPE, and overall protocols, there have been no cases of contracting COVID during aid calls and no spreading of the disease to the community. This is a remarkable achievement, and I support it going forward. Second, I want to pay attention to the community situation, and I'd like to mention wages. During the pandemic, we are seeing jobs posted here in our community for delivery drivers, restaurant servers, and other entry-level roles at wages higher than those paid to our part-time emergency responders. I think District 5 would be well served to consider increasing compensation for that staff in line with their special skills and extended training. Of course, there are many facets that need to be considered, but let's have that discussion.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings us to the end of the forum. Each of the partners of this forum coalition want to tell you thank you for joining us and to thank you to you for running for office. A recording of this forum and our others will be available at the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County website and our YouTube channel. You can find links to both of those on our website at lwvsnoho, that's lwvsnoho.org. We encourage our listeners to explore additional information about these candidates and all the candidates in the upcoming election. The Snohomish County voter pamphlet will be mailed to residences starting tomorrow, October 13. Vote411.org, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, is another good source for nonpartisan voting information. Finally, general election ballots will be mailed on October 14th, and Election Day is November 2nd. Please vote. This concludes our candidate forum. Thank you for joining us.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to this forum featuring candidates for Gold Bar Mayor, sponsored by a partnership among the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County, Snow Isle Libraries, the Sky Valley Chamber of Commerce, and the Sultan School District. It's a pleasure to welcome you here. I'm your moderator, Karen Madsen, member of the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County. Joining me are candidates for Gold Bar Mayor, Jordan Sears and Stephen Yarbrough. The League thanks these candidates for running for office, for your willingness to serve the community if elected, and for participating in this forum. It's the policy of the League to be nonpartisan. Therefore, we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or parties. We do take positions on issues which we have studied and on which we have reached consensus. Ground rules for the forum were sent ahead of time to each of the candidates, but let me take a moment to explain the question and answer period rules for our friends who are listening. Opening and closing questions have been shared with the candidates. Other questions have not been shared. However, we have made each candidate aware of the issue areas this forum plans to cover. And by the way, we want to thank community members who sent us recommendations for questions about issues of concern to them. I'll pose the questions. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond, with the exception of the last question when candidates will have 90 seconds. And I'll be sure to remind you of that. We're using a countdown timer, which is visible to all the candidates. It shows elapsed time, and it alerts candidates when there are 15 seconds left and when time is up. Time limits on answers will be strictly enforced. When you see the timer turn red and hear the chime, you need to be done answering the question. I'll change the starting order for each question, rotating back and forth to assure fairness. I randomly determined who would go first, and it turns out it's Mr. Sears. So Mr. Sears will answer the first question first, followed by Mr. Yarbrough. Mr. Yarbrough, you'll answer the second question first, and so basically you'll go back and forth. And on that note, let's begin. Mr. Sears, you're up first. You have 1 minute to tell us what qualifications and experience make you a strong candidate for this position.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League for hosting this event. They've been doing great for other races as well. My qualifications include working as a financial service representative for the last 3 years at a nationally accredited credit union. I currently serve on the Gold Bar City Council, in which I was appointed and then elected to a full term. I also served over the last 2 years as Mayor Pro Tem, being elected twice unanimously by my council peers. I've also served on various boards, such as the Sky Valley Citizens for Schools, which successfully passed 2 levies, which lowered the local tax rate by almost $1.08 per thousand in assessed value. I've also been working closely with our mayor and city staff, as well as passing the most resolutions of any city council member in the last 2 years in writing and passing those.
Thank you, Mr. Yarbrough.
My qualifications: I can listen, be civil, and empathize with both city employees and citizens. I'm a cancer survivor, so I know how to fight and appreciate every day. I have a very calm, rational demeanor and even temperament. I have 38 years in the electrical trade and just recently retired, so I have more time now to dedicate to the city and its day-to-day operations. I've spent my whole career troubleshooting electrical issues, and the past 12 years also in my IT business, troubleshooting computer issues. So multiple careers identifying and fixing issues. Over 4 years on the city council, I've helped tackle issues that previous councils did not choose to take up, such as water rates and ATV ordinances that I have sponsored. And I also pushed for the Comcast franchise agreement when I became aware that none existed.
Thank you, Mr. Yarbrough. You lead off to tell us, please, what are the biggest challenges you think face Gold Bar, and what are its greatest strengths?
Sorry about that. So the biggest challenges are public safety, finding solutions to weekend gridlock on Highway 2, and improving our city parks for more varied use. Gold Bar's greatest strength is its citizens. Volunteerism and strength of community are ever present.
Thank you. Mr. Sears?
Yes, I think one of the biggest problems, I'll have to agree with Councilman Yarborough, is the safety issue when it comes to, especially over the weekends for traffic. We have problems where firefighters and ambulances can't get out of their driveways, especially over the summer. I was very proud to work with County Council Member Sam Lowe in passing the state bypass funding model. Unfortunately, that was vetoed because of COVID. But one of our greatest strengths is our city employees. We have some great staff members who are willing to work with the community, who are willing to go out of their way to help people. And I'm very proud of that.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Mr. Sears, take the lead on this one, if you would. What do you think is one aspect of public safety which could be improved in Gold Bar to increase effectiveness and equity?
Yeah, so I believe that we can work closer with our partners like the fire, with Snohomish County, our fire districts, as well as the state. I believe that we should be working closer with those entities to be able to provide for better and safer streets and water. One of the ways to increase effectiveness will be to make sure that we pass in the next session pass that bypass study, because we need that. That is the #1 problem that faces us, is weekend traffic from people outside of the state going across the mountains, as well as going towards Walls Falls State Park.
Thank you, Mr. Yarborough.
I agree with Mr. Sears. We need to work closer with the Snohomish County sheriffs here in town, and look into some more organized neighborhood and block watch groups. The highway is just an it's a long-term issue, but we have to continue to keep working closely with our local, state, and federal legislators to come up with a permanent solution.
Thank you. Each of you has mentioned Highway 2. Let's take a minute on that. How might Gold Bar, with you as mayor, mitigate the US 2 traffic issues? What would you like to add that you didn't include in earlier answers? Mr. Yarborough, you would lead on this. I'm sorry.
Oh, Jordan and I both went down to Olympia a couple of years ago for the funding that we were trying to get, and we need to continue to work for that. And here in the city, we need to improve the beauty of the corridor where it goes through town. But we also need to, I believe that the incentive and the project of replacing the lights in Sultan with roundabouts is something that we really need to work hard for, and get the funding to get that done.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, your thoughts on Highway 2?
Yeah, so I agree that not only do we need to get that study passed again, but we also need to make sure that other state legislators and county officials and even our federal legislators know how much of a burden that it causes to not only the citizens of Gold Bar, but also in Sultan, Index, Bering, and Snohomish. I think that it's a wonderful idea to be replacing those lights with roundabouts. We want to make sure that Sultan can get, I'm pretty sure that they're working on getting grants for that, and I would 100% support that. That is probably one of the #1 problems that causes traffic to back up, is those 3 lights, the timing for it, as well as just the amount of people coming through, and the fact that it's a federal highway as well. So the city and county can't do a lot without state and federal approval.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, what measures would you support to keep housing options affordable in Gold Bar?
Yeah, so right now, obviously, we do have the eviction moratorium going on. One thing that we are looking into, we just recently passed, was we're applying for a grant with the city of Sultan to be able to look into other housing options. I believe that, whether we like it or not, the city is expanding, and we do need to look into options, like potentially apartment buildings. We are seeing 7 new houses being built by May Creek Road this year, and about 56 more houses in the next couple of years. We need to ensure that the county and state and make sure that there are laws protecting individuals who are wanting to purchase houses. Right now, we have some of the just in the state and in the country, we have some of the highest prices for houses. We have a national housing crisis with lack of houses being able to be bought by people.
Mr. Yarbrough, your thoughts on affordable housing?
Yes, we need to work on some zoning issues here in town, as right now we don't have areas that are marked for multifamily, and I think that would benefit the city quite a bit. We're also going to be looking into things such as tiny houses and accessory dwellings, and so our zoning needs to be updated to accommodate all of that. And I'm looking forward to being part of this grant with the city of Sultan.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Yarbrough, lead off on this, please. What initiatives would you support to address food insecurity, drug and alcohol abuse, and mental health issues faced by some of your residents?
Well, we should work on removing the stigma that mental health patients feel, so more are empowered to get help and take advantage of resources. I applaud the work that our state representative, Carolyn Essick, has done to bring this topic to the forefront in our area. Additional housing is not necessarily the end to homelessness, but dealing with the mental illness and drug addiction is where to start. We need to keep supporting our local food banks and organizations such as Sky Valley Strong.
Thank you. Mr. Sears?
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Yarbrough in supporting our local food banks as well as Sky Valley Strong. They did some wonderful work over the last 2 years in the fight with COVID. We had a lot of food insecurity. When it comes to mental health and drug addiction, one thing that Carolyn Essick, Representative Essick, has spoken about is, obligatory mental health and or drug counseling services. I believe that we should look into a potential interlocal agreement within the Sky Valley, so from Snohomish to Monroe, to look into a mental health crisis unit. Cities like Bothell and Marysville, actually most of North King County have some sort of unit to respond. Our officers currently are overworked, and they, 8 hours of training a year isn't going to help them when it comes to mental health or drug crises. We need actual professionals without taking away from our sheriff's pay or anything like that.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. What's your strategy for working productively, Mr. Sears, with your council colleagues and with members of the public whose ideas or life experiences are different from yours?
Yeah, so the number one thing for me is that when I go into meetings, I come in good faith. Everyone needs to be able to come to the table and speak their experiences and their life, their life's journey. First, we need to be able to find where we have common ground and then expand from there. Secondly, we need to then find our stated goal of what we are intending to do. This current council and this council that's going to be elected this coming cycle, I think is one of the best councils the city has seen in decades. We've been very productive in passing and ensuring and working together to pass resolutions and ordinances that have input from every council member as well as members of the public. One thing I'd like to see is once COVID is over, the reinstatement of coffee with the mayor and office hours in the mornings or in the evenings so that people can come who can't go to council meetings at 7 o'clock.
Mr. Yarbrough, your thoughts on that question?
Civility, one word sums it up. Only through civil discourse of disagreements can we hope to find all the answers that will serve the citizens of Gold Bar the best. Empathy and compassion are required before we can truly listen to others. I will make every effort to listen and learn.
Thank you. Mr. Yarborough, again to you. What should be Gold Bar's plan to deal with existing or potential racial inequities in your area?
Well, our population is becoming increasingly diverse here in Gold Bar, and we can't let our guard down on racial inequalities, and it's so it needs to be the forefront on everybody's mind as we go forward, and our population continues to change as growth continues to move east on Highway 2.
Mr. Sears?
Yeah, so we are seeing a much more diverse population here in Gold Bar, especially in the Latino community. One thing that we need to make sure is that, one, we're reaching out to them, and two, making sure that they have a seat at the table so that they don't feel excluded. We also need to be working with the county and the state because, inequality is everywhere. It's not just in the city of Gold Bar. It's not just in Monroe. It's not just in the South. It needs to be we need to be proactive, and we need to have a community-based as well as a state-based deep dive into the problems and nip them in the bud before they can get into bigger problems.
Mr. Sears, what are the most pressing environmental issues Gold Bar faces, and what would you propose to address them?
Right now, the biggest environmental thing that we face, unfortunately, there isn't much that we can do because it's already been approved and we've already came out against it, but is the logging in the surrounding area outside of city limits. That's just started up and it's going to be continuing for a while. One thing is to ensure that, when we take down trees, we got to make sure we plant trees. And then we need to make sure that our water is safe and secure. So, we need to do a study looking into we need to make sure that we're keeping on top of replacing our water pipes. We've had a great plan and we're almost done with replacing all of them in city limits.
Mr. Yarborough?
There are almost as many opinions on the local environment as there are citizens, but we can all agree on a few things. We want to maintain the beauty of Gold Bar, the Snohomish River and Valley, and the surrounding mountains and forests. Like Jordan said, that everybody here was trying to help slow down and mitigate some of the logging, but as it proceeds, we need to help maintain the cleanliness of all of our rivers and creeks. Recently, we watched all the salmon come up the stream, and it was a wonderful thing. So that must be balanced with encouraging tourism and recreation opportunities. We cannot call Gold Bar the gateway to the Cascades and not be good stewards to ensure it lives up to its name.
Thank you. Mr. Yarborough, what are the issues, if any, in Gold Bar arising from the pandemic, and how would you address them if you believe they exist?
Well, of course, as far as the city services go, they have not been impacted. We haven't seen a loss of revenue as far as city goes or its services. We did have a slowdown in some of the materials acquisition when we were working on the dog park, and that took a little while to do because the DOC crews were unavailable because of COVID. Vaccination rates are still low here, lower than they should be, and so we need to keep pushing to get that taken care of and move past this pandemic.
Mr. Sears?
Yeah, so like Steve said, there hasn't been a lot of changes within city services. Getting supplies for the dog park was very long. We actually approved that in June of 2020, and we weren't able to get it up until I think last month or the month before. We did have members of the community who did lose their jobs, and one of the things that we did was have city staff negotiate with them to make sure that they don't fall behind on their water payments, or if they did, how they can in the future be better at it, at paying those and ensuring that they're not going behind. One thing that we need to look into, because we did lose some revenue when it came to late fees. We did have quite a bit of revenue from late fees on water funds. Because of the governor's orders, we can't do that anymore right now. So we need to look into in the future how we can ensure that we don't have to rely on those late fees.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. On another topic, do you think Gold Bar should involve residents in decisions regarding budget challenges, new taxes, service cuts? If so, how do you think they should be involved?
Yeah, so the city actually does have a way of involving citizens. We always make sure that they're aware of public comments and public hearings. So when we do things like we haven't done a lot of tax raising in the last few years, but if that does come up, we send out notice. It does take 2 meetings. We always accept for email comments as well as in-person or Zoom comments. One thing that I think we need to do a little bit better at is letting people know. I do believe that we should be looking into some sort of social media, but still following our rules regarding Freedom of Information Act, so that the problems that we've had in the past don't continue. But a lot of people are on social media, and we need to be able to make sure that that information gets out to people so that they can come to the meetings or email council members or the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Yarbrough.
Well, residents are always encouraged to participate in the annual budget process, the council meetings, and the public hearings. It is the right and responsibility of citizens to be informed and participate whenever possible. And the best future of the city for our children depends on the citizen involvement. I agree with Mr. Sears. We need to start being more proactive on the social media, because that's where everybody is at these days. Even though there has been a chance for more involvement through Zoom to our council meetings, it's been a little disappointing with the attendance there. And it would be nice if more people would join and at least know that they have the chance to do that if they want to.
Mr. Yarbrough, do you have any ideas for what additional services you could provide to the community's elderly population?
Well, we do offer discounts on water services, but there is nothing in Gold Bar as far as organized senior services. I think those would all emanate out of Sultan. No, I'm sorry to say, I really do not know what more we could do for the senior citizens at this time.
Thanks, Mr. Sears.
Like Councilman Yarbrough said, we do allow for discounts for seniors and people of low income. One thing that I think we should do, and it's one of the key platforms positions that I have, is to expand the city's reach with the county, state, and federal government, so that when they make laws or make rules, they think of Gold Bar, they put Gold Bar in their mind. Is this going to help the residents of Gold Bar? Yes, we're going to pass it. No, we're not going to pass it. We need to be lobbying our county and state legislators to pass programs that save our seniors money and make sure that they have less government in their pockets. I believe wholeheartedly that the mayor's job is to be there to represent the citizens, and if that means going down to Everett to the county council chambers, or to Olympia to the state legislature, or even DC to Congress, they need to be putting seniors first.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, should Gold Bar consider consolidation of some services, police, fire, libraries, parks, with other districts outside Gold Bar?
So no, that's a short answer. The bit longer answer is we have no control over the fire district or the libraries. The closest library is in Sultan, as you guys know. And the fire district did just merge with Snohomish. I don't know if you guys are holding a forum on those candidates, either if you already have or will. We contract through the Snohomish County Sheriff's Department. We have a great team of officers who are based out here in Gold Bar. They have done a wonderful job, and under the leadership of Chief Hess. And then our Parks Department, we are slowly expanding. We do most of the land on the north side of the city, especially where the dog park is. That's owned by BNSF, which is the train company. They allow us to use that for our own needs.
Thank you. Mr. Yarbrough?
Gold Bar is on a better financial foothold than it was 4 years ago. And so there is no need, just like Jordan says, to consolidate services. But there is a need and desire to beautify on the highway corridor and improve our parks. The Gold Bar Police Department, the Snohomish County Sheriffs, does an outstanding job with dedicated officers. And the Sky Valley Fire District has been serving the region for 53 years, and we could not ask for better.
With that, we've come to our last question. This is the one, Mr. Yarbrough, you'll lead off. This is the one that gives you a minute and a half to answer if you choose to use that. And the question is, what additional issues or information would you like to bring to the attention of your community?
Well, beautification and improvement of our city parks is on our residents' minds. We need to improve the view from the highway and raise pride in our city. We need to encourage support of public education and our elementary school. And our growing Hispanic demographic brings fresh enthusiasm in support of our public schools, and we need to embrace our increasing diversity. The mayor should be able to work closely with county, state, and federal elected leaders for support and betterment of Gold Bar and its citizens in a completely nonpartisan fashion. I do not have any further political aspirations. The mayor's office is not a stepping stone to higher office for me. I feel no need to posture, placate, and appease political parties for future political endeavors. I have no agenda to push for except what is best for all the citizens of Gold Bar. I have complete faith in this city and its residents with their sense of community, volunteerism, and patriotism. I look forward to taking the oath as mayor of Gold Bar. Thank you for this opportunity and all the hard work you have done to make this forum happen. And thank you, Jordan, for your time.
It's been our pleasure, Mr. Yarbrough. Mr. Sears?
Yeah, so as I said a little bit before, I believe that the mayor's job and the mayor's role is to advocate for the citizens of Gold Bar. We need to ensure that citizens' voices are heard as well as listened to. I believe that we should be working closely with the county, state, federal government, as well as other cities, not just within the Sky Valley, but outside the Sky Valley as well. If we can ensure that, another city is benefited as well as Gold Bar, why don't we make that choice? I've worked with I apologize. I've been speaking with other council candidates across the state, especially here in Snohomish County, as well as school board candidates who all agree that we need to do what's best for our community. I want to thank everyone for hosting this today, the League of Women Voters, Turk Pride TV, Go Turks. I'm a proud graduate, as well as the Sky Valley Chamber of Commerce. And above all else, thank you, Councilman Yarbrough, for this great race and ensuring that, we have what's best for the city of Gold Bar. I hope for your vote on November 2nd. Ballot boxes are on Orchard and 5th, right across the street from City Hall. Thank you.
Well, it's been our great pleasure to host this forum, and the entirety of our coalition thanks you for running for office, for joining us this evening, for willing to serve the public this way. A recording of this forum and others will be available on the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County website and on our YouTube channel. You can find links to all of these forums at lwvsnoho.org. That's lwvsnoho.org. We encourage you, the listeners, to explore additional information about these candidates and all the other candidates. The Snohomish County voter pamphlet will be mailed to residents starting October 13th, and vote411.org, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, is another good source for nonpartisan voting information. Finally, general election ballots will be mailed October 14th. Election day is November 2nd. Please vote. This concludes our forum. Thank you all for joining us.